In the previous part, Lim easily defeated the boss monster with the brain-dead hunters, clearing the dungeon. And after he exited the dungeon, rumors of him and Beak being together began to circulate in the news because they were seen hugging. Then at a party meant to celebrate his return, Changsu asked him about his future goals, and Lim announced that his goal is to retire with enough money so he won't have to do anything for the rest of his life. This shocked everyone at the party, especially Changsu, who thought Lim would want to become the strongest hunter. After the party, he was given vacation days, and Lim decided to use his days off to spend time with those close to him at a lake, and to also find an item he wanted to use to make more money. Which brings us to now, where he almost drowned in the lake while checking out the location of the item. Before we get onto the video, do me a favor and hit the like button, it greatly helps out the channel. Now back to the video. Lim woke up inside the cave he found in the previous part by water droplets that dripped down from stalactites. He opened his eyes, still in a daze, then he looked around to gather his bearings, but he realized two things. One, something had tried to tie him up with seaweed, but the seaweed was so weak that he could break it without trying. Two, there were strange fairy-looking things in front of him. This shocked him because the fairy creatures in front of him had features of a species of fairies he knows very well. Two of the fairy creatures were panicking. They questioned if Lim was here to do something bad to them. The one in the middle confronted Lim, questioning who he was. Lim sat up, and he easily ripped the seaweeds that were wrapped around his torso. He questioned if these creatures were the ones who dragged him here. This surprised the fairies. The two that were panicking earlier were now flying around flailing their arms, expressing that Lim looks angry. The one who confronted Lim was now panicking as well, and it expressed to the others that Lim is going to kill them, so they all quickly took shelter behind a stalagmite. Lim was slightly annoyed by their chaotic nature. He told them in an annoyed tone that he wouldn't kill them. The Nostal continent is a place where magical plants, animals, and fairies inhabit. Lim worked in the Nostal continent for a few months as a tour guide in his previous life, and during his time there was a fairy only found near clean waters, called Snowy. And the creatures he just found in the cave resemble the snowy species he found when he was working as a guide in the Nostal continent. In their language, Lim asked them if they were Snowies. This surprised the Snowies, and they questioned if Lim knew of them. The Snowies were no longer panicking. Instead, they were now intrigued by Lim. They quickly moved away from the stalagmite, and while flying around Lim, they proceeded to ask him multiple questions. The bombardment of questions was too much for Lim to handle, and he asked them to only ask one question at a time. Suddenly, Lim's gaze intensified. In the past, there was no information of fairies being found here, and it will be troublesome for him if the past is suddenly changing. He stopped the Snowies, questioning why they were here. The Snowies explained that they used to live in the lake, but their home suddenly switched into a different dimension. Lim quickly realized that they must be talking about the first gate. The Snowies continued to explain that suddenly monsters started to appear in their home, and these monsters fought and ate each other. And the strongest of all the monsters that appeared, the Kraken, ate a lot of their species, so they ran away to the bottom of the lake, where they found this cave. And they have been living here ever since. Lim crossed his arms, and in a pitied tone, he expressed that he understood it must have been hard for the Snowies. Lim also guessed that the Snowies were wiped out in his previous life, which is the reason why there was no information about them being at this lake. With a saddened expression, the Snowies told Lim that now they have no future, and because they weren't getting sunlight, they were slowly weakening. But they couldn't go out because of the Kraken. Lim interrupted them, saying the Kraken monster is dead, and that they can go outside now. However, the Snowies were in disbelief, and they told Lim that he shouldn't lie to them. Lim knows that the Snowies can decipher whether or not he is telling the truth, so he reached forth his hand, saying the Snowies can see for themselves. The Snowies used their ability, and to their surprise, Lim was telling the truth. They started flying around Lim again, thankfully cheering about the fact that they can go outside again, and thanking Lim for avenging their fallen friends. The Snowies going around him in circles was starting to give Lim a headache. He angrily asked them to stop, expressing that they were giving him a headache. Then he says they should follow him so they can get out of the cave. The Snowies followed behind Lim, and they asked if they were now friends, and Lim said they were. This made them very cheerful. As they made their way through the cave, Lim thought about his original objective, which was the otherworldly item hidden in the cave. But this cave is guarded by a guardian, and he didn't think he would also meet Snowies. If it was another regressor, they would think of using the otherworldly item to make dealing with the first disaster easier. However, Lim couldn't help but think about how much money he would make if he monopolized the item, and turned this lake into a snowy theme park. The Snowies suddenly warned him about a trap. Interrupting his pleasant thinking, he quickly dodged the trap. This made him grateful, since he would have had a hard time with the traps if it wasn't for the Snowies. The Snowies moved to the front, and they expressed that they were almost there. But first they stopped him, and said they wanted to say bye to their friend first. This surprised Lim, and he questioned if there was something the Snowies can be friends with in this cave. Suddenly something came to mind, and he questioned if the friend the Snowies were talking about is white, hard, and less than twice his size. With a happy smile the Snowies told Lim that he was correct, and they questioned if Lim knew their friend. They happily expressed, with their arms flailing around, that their friend is kind and strong, and is the reason why the octopus couldn't enter the cave. Lim, now realizing that the guardian is the friend the Snowies were talking about, asked them to go say goodbye while he waited for them. But the Snowies expressed that they were already at their friend's location, and suddenly a door closed behind Lim, surprising him. And when he turned, he was faced with a small white robot. The robot recognized Lim as an intruder and it closed off the surrounding areas. All Lim could do was watch as the robot quickly closed off his other escape paths. Afterwards, the robot ran an evaluation on Lim. And after the evaluation was complete, the robot started to transform. Lim asked the Snowies if their friend is really friendly when it's talking about removing a target. The Snowies started to sweat nervously as they watched their friend's appearance change. The robot finished transforming, and it was now prepared to commence the removal. Lim quickly activated the ability the watch gained after absorbing the spirit stone, and suddenly a metal-like exoskeleton covered his hand, and he expressed that he can finally test out this fucking watch. The robot jumped at him, and they clashed, and Lim was pushed back. He clenched his fist. There was nothing he could do against the weight class difference. However, he thought the new ability the watch gained wasn't bad, and he guessed the robot wouldn't be able to use its right side after their clash. The robot ran an evaluation on its right hand that had been damaged from its clash with Lim. It also did a re-evaluation on Lim's danger level. However, Lim broke the secret anime code of allowing your enemy to charge up. He attacked the robot, questioning if the robot thought he would wait for him to get stronger, and afterwards he quickly backed away and the robot dropped to the ground. Lim was having trouble dealing a finishing blow because he wasn't able to put a lot of mana into the gauntlet, so he decided to retreat for now. But the robot was persistent and it continued to chase after him. Lim turned his attention to one of the walls and he came up with the plan to break the wall down to get away and return after getting Lily and Wang. But while he was distracted with coming up with a plan, the robot had intercepted him and was preparing to end his life. Luckily, one of the Snowies moved in front of Lim, stopping the robot's attack. The Snowies expressed to the robot that Lim is their friend. The robot ran a scan of the Snowy and it started to malfunction since the Snowies aren't a removal target. Using this opportunity, Lim punched the robot, shocking the Snowy. The Snowy turned to Lim, questioning why he hit their friend. And with a menacing grin, Lim expressed that they should talk later. And while the robot was down, he proceeded to attack it, and the Snowies watched in a panic as Lim destroyed their friend. A short while later the robot was defeated, and the Snowies gathered around its tattered body, crying for their friend to get better. They confronted Lim, angrily demanding he explain why he killed their friend. Lim deactivated the watch's ability, and with an annoyed tone, he explained that he was just defending himself, and he questioned if the Snowies wanted him to die. The Snowies were conflicted as they didn't want Lim to die either, since he is also their friend, so they made their way over to the robot, and they started mourning it. Lim also made his way over and he knelt near the robot, questioning if he hadn't proven his qualifications. The robot ended the trial and it gave Lim a key. Lim stared at the key with a menacing grin on his face. Now that he has the key, all he has to do is find the location of the otherworldly item. But suddenly the Snowies confronted him again. They flew around him angrily, expressing that they are no longer friends, since friends wouldn't kill each other. Lim, with an annoyed look, explained that the robot can be brought back to life by one of his team members. He quickly reached forth his hand so the Snowies could see that he wasn't lying. The Snowies checked, and to their surprise Lim was telling the truth. Lim's expression changed. He now had a smile on his face. The Snowies were giving him a bit of a headache, but it wasn't too bad when he thinks of ways they can make him money. Today's technology can't recreate a golem of the Guardian's caliber, but Yongsun with his craftsmanship specialty should be able to save the robot. Staring at the key, he thought that the robot isn't what's important right now. He looked around the makeshift battle arena the robot had created, and he noticed an open door, so he quickly made his way over, and the Snowies followed. As they walked through the door, the Snowies looked around in amazement, as this was the first time a place like this had opened, and they questioned what Lim would be looking for. Lim didn't give them much detail. He looked around while explaining that he was looking for something very important. Finally, he found what he was looking for, the Liquor of Life, a golden liquor with an endless amount of strong healing abilities. Lim quickly grabbed the Liquor of Life with a mischievous smile. He regressed to a time when potions haven't been made yet, and now he is in possession of an item that can create an infinite amount of liquor with healing properties. All he has to do is put the liquid in high-class potion bottles, and he was certain they would sell well, since the liquid tastes good as well. On the night of the first disaster, Night of the 7 Moons, if armies of monsters appear, then he will also be able to save countless hunters and civilians. As he was testing out the Liquor of Life, one of the Snowies approached him. The liquor smelled tasty, so it asked Lim if it could have a taste as well. Lim told the Snowies that there wasn't much left. He gave the Snowies the little that remained, expressing that they could have more once the object fills up again. After drinking the liquor of life, the Snowies started glowing. The light was so blinding that Lim had to cover his eyes, and he questioned if the liquor of life is something special to fairies. When the light disappeared, the Snowy observed its body, and it exclaimed that its body got lighter. Lim also observed the Snowy, and he noticed that it seemed to have shrunk. However, he decided to look into the details later, and since he was done with the cave, he wanted to head out. He left the cave, but as he swam closer to the surface he noticed something weird. The higher he swam, the warmer the water got. Finally, when they emerged from the water, they were faced with a giant fireball. Lim stared at the fireball, questioning why Lily was playing with fire. Lily quickly noticed Lim in the water, and with a cold tone she called out to him, questioning if it was really him. Lim shouted that it really was him. He expressed that Lily should get rid of the fireball, and he questioned if she really had a need to vaporize the entire lake. Lily deactivated her fireball, but suddenly on the shore of the lake, Lim heard Changsu calling out for him. This scared the Snowies, and they quickly submerged themselves back into the lake. And with a nervous smile, Lim finally realized that things would have been really bad for nature if he stayed down there any longer. He quickly swam over to Changsu, and afterwards he tried explaining that he was taking care of some personal things. Changsu let out a sigh of relief, and he expressed that he is just glad Lim made it back safely. With a nervous smile, he says it's a good thing he kept Lily from wiping out the entire lake. Beak and Wang quickly made their way over, questioning if Lim had been found. Changsu turned his head, and with a pleasant smile, he expressed that everyone can stop searching now. Beak quickly made her way over to Lim, and she hugged him. This surprised Lim, and to the Snowies it seemed like Lim was in danger, so they quickly jumped out of the water to defend their friend. This surprised Beak and Changsu. Changsu informed Lim that there was a monster behind him. All the chaos was starting to get to Lim. He got Beak off of him, and he asked everyone to calm down. He explained that the Snowies are his friends, and he said he will give the details about how he befriended them in a bit. Lily made her way over and she headbutted Lim in the gut, then she started throwing hands. She explained that Lim missed dinner time, so she was worried. With a saddened tone she explained that she couldn't eat because she was looking for him. Lim patted her on the head, and finally he apologized to everyone for being late. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button.